During Bernie Sanders' town hall on Fox News, the topic of Medicare for All came up, and I'm very curious to see what type of questions he was asked, how he answered, and more importantly, how the audience reacted. So with that said, let's go to video 6. That's our first video on this.
This audience has a lot of Democrats in it. It has Republicans, independents, Democratic Socialists, conservatives. I want to ask the audience a question. If you could raise your hand here, a show of hands of how many people get their insurance from work, private insurance right now. How many get it from private insurance? Okay, now of those, how many are willing to transition to what the senator says, a government-run system? There's 180 million people on private insurance.
All right, let's deal with that, Brett.
And they would be lost, right? To your system.
Fair
Okay.
question.
Okay.
Good question.
Good, thank you.
I know it's what the right wing throws out, so let me answer it, all right? Millions of people every single year lose their health insurance. You know why? They get fired or they quit and they go to another employer. I was a mayor for 8 years. You know what I did, what probably every mayor in America does? Is you look around for the best insurance program, the most cost-effective insurance. You change insurance. Every year, millions of workers wake up in the morning and their employer has changed the insurance that they have. Maybe they like the doctors. People are nodding their heads. Okay, so this is not new. Every year. Now, what we're talking about actually is stability. That when you have a Medicare for all, it is there now and will be there in the future.
Yeah, John was right. I did love that clip. I loved it so much because I don't want to feel stuck at a job because my job is what provides the health insurance I need to stay alive, because my job provides the health insurance that my family needs to stay alive, right? Yeah. Maybe I want to quit my job, right? I certainly think about it a lot.
Right now.
So no, but look, my point is, I mean, you hear about the right wing wanting to promote new businesses and small businesses. The best way to do that is to give people the freedom to leave the jobs that they have now to start their small businesses. One of the reasons why people don't do that is because it's too much of a risk to leave your health insurance behind, right? Yes, the money is part of it, but more importantly, you can't mess with health insurance. If you're lucky enough to have good healthcare coverage through your employer, you're gonna think twice about leaving, even if you're miserable. And so I love the fact that he talks about that. It's so important.
I don't want millionaires speaking up on my behalf about my health care when it's not a problem for them. So he's sitting there, very smug and talking about all of the Americans that he will never ever impact or care about because he's okay. He's all goody, right? He's nothing to worry about when it comes to health insurance. The other thing is all Americans need to be looking at this situation sideways. Every other commercial, Emery, my life partner, and I have just made this observation. We started counting how many pharmaceutical commercials they air now. Yeah. They have to have production companies that are producing these stock commercials and people just add the medication to them. And they put black families on bikes. You know what they do. They put the Mexican family. You know what they do.
Yes.
You have to take note that this is a very big business and somebody's behind it. And a lot of those somebodies are the people who so-called represent you. Yeah. And that's scary. That's really scary.
Absolutely.
And so that was another from Brett Barrett. So that's another incredibly cheap little tactic. Back in college, I took a political rhetoric course where you study like the great persuaders in history. It's like here you study great debates. Two people going back and forth, and then like a couple hundred or a couple thousand years later, it's like people are going to lose their health insurance. And then what?
Yeah.
And then what's gonna happen? They're gonna then be transitioned immediately to health insurance. And but really fast, Trump tweeted, people are gonna lose their great private health insurance. And then what? And then they're gonna have health insurance. I honestly feel like if that cheap of a political tactic can actually stop us from transitioning to Medicare for all, I think we should just shut down the whole country. That like, considering how long people have struggled with either not having access to health insurance or having to pay too much or being thrown off it when they transition from one job to another, understanding on a visceral level how terrible the situation is, Millions of them will be convinced by Donald Trump's "you'll lose your health insurance," even though you will immediately have it be replaced by something that is better. And even though, as he's saying that, Donald Trump is literally trying to stop the ACA, which would literally throw more than 30 million people off their health insurance with no replacement.
Well, one of the things that I think, certainly the right wing, but I see it happening with some members of the left wing as well. They're capitalizing off of people's confusion about doctors versus health insurance, right? So people like their doctors. And so when they hear you're gonna lose your private insurance, they're thinking you're not gonna have access to this doctor that you really love anymore. And it drives me nuts because someone's gotta clarify. And I think this is something that Bernie can improve on. This is a critique that I have of him. He needs to be clear in saying, you're not going to lose access to the doctors you love. You're just gonna get better healthcare coverage. So when your doctor says you need a certain procedure, you don't need to go through the rigmarole of, is this gonna be authorized? Is the health insurance company going to allow it? Yes, the health insurance company is gonna allow it. The health insurance company is gonna be the government. And so they're going to approve it. And more importantly, you're not gonna have a separate policy for healthcare and then vision and then hearing and then whatever and dental. Like, it's all gonna be covered under this system. And they use Medicare for All because Medicare is such a popular government program, but it's gonna be more robust than what Medicare is right now, in that it's gonna cover way more because it's gonna be very well funded.
And the other thing is that you have to think about it, that it's gonna be, imagine how much more effort they will put into preventing illness and keeping you healthy if they don't have to cover. For me, it took me a year to get an authorization to have a lump removed from my breast. Jesus. Right? That could have very well been cancer. It was benign, but it took a year. But if the government is responsible for that and they don't want to take care of my chemo and all of because cancer is so expensive. I watched my grandmother deteriorate. We couldn't afford it, If the onus of having to take care of you through illness, then so much more effort would be put into keeping you healthy. And if you don't think about anything, you should think about it logically from that point. When they have the responsibility to taking care of you, they're gonna make sure that you're well, or they're gonna try their best to make sure that you're well.
You make a really great point, and I wanna bring up a quick example. So, healthcare in Cuba, I know people are gonna get triggered because people either wanna pretend like Cuba's perfect or they think Cuba is a hellhole. But there's one thing that Cuba does right with its healthcare, and it's preventative care, because they do not have the resources to deal with illnesses that are developed, like that are highly developed. At that point, it's too late. They might not have the right medications for it. You get the picture. So they take preventative healthcare, which is more affordable, very seriously. And they do home visits on a regular basis. They wanna make sure that people are constantly seeing their doctor so they can catch things before they develop. And so that is something they're doing right. And I think that's something that would happen here in the United States as well. If the government knows that it's far more expensive to treat illnesses once they're in the late stages, well, then they're gonna really emphasize preventative care, something that a lot of Americans are not getting right now because they're too afraid to go to the doctor. It's too expensive. They're worried about what they might find, and then they might not have the resources to treat that illness. These are all things to keep in mind.
On the go? Don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.